Hold on, I'm trying to get the hang of this. So as of recently, my little sister got me into crocheting, and I've been slacking. I've been slacking low key. All right, so gotta make a little slip knot and then slide it. I'm supposed to do that with the hook. Okay, I think I'm getting somewhere. But anyways, hey y'all, what's going on? It's Chemistry. We're blessed and highly back here today. What we're gonna be doing, girl. I didn't lost the rhythm now. Okay, y'all, and today, so a while back I had did so I did this whole series called Random Talk One a while back, where I'm essentially, pretty much gonna be answering questions that y'all do have. So aside from that, let's get shopping, shall we? All right, so the first one, because I'm reading them from my phone. So the first one says, "Are all the writers of the Bible equal in their messages? Should we see the messaging in St. Paul's letters as of equal value to the messaging in the Gospels by the evangelists, for example? As a Christian myself, this is one of the topics that I'm most interested in." I'm gonna have to do this over. Sorry if it's a bit of a complicated question. Actually, it's not a complicated question. So, in my eyes, all the writers of the Bible are equivalent because of the sole fact that every single one of them are echoing the same sentiments. Like prime example, like in the Old Testament, literally all of the prophets, whether it's Elisha, Elijah, Jeremiah, Isaiah, Obadiah, Haggai, etc., they're all saying the same thing: follow God, trust God, and literally repent when you do something wrong. It's always important to care about what God is trying to get you to realize, because in the Old Testament, the Israelites had this really bad habit of, like I said, coming to God, leaving God, coming to God, leaving God. They had a really bad habit of, God doing stuff for them, and then lo and behold, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm hungry. You don't never do nothing for little old me." And then God does it, and then they turn back around and it's like, "But I'm hungry now. I know you've been doing anything for me." And then they go and kind of spit in his face by worshiping false gods. So with Paul, all Paul was literally saying, like, for example, like the beautiful thing that I like pertaining to Paul is the specific fact that Paul realized that, hey, I can't do all this stuff on my own. I can't do it on my own. I'm gonna fail doing it every time. Every single time. Like, there's a lot of people in really every sect of Christianity that feel like, in order to, hold on, I keep messing up on this. So every single time they feel like, oh, in order for me to be a good Christian, I have to focus on works. So if I focus a cajillion times on not doing this specific thing because the commandments say not to do it, then I cracked the code. I am now a good Christian. But Paul was trying to get people to realize that just like with the Israelites, they thought that, oh, you know what, we got this in the bag. We can follow and listen to what God is saying. And only to fail. Only to fail time after time after time after time after time again. Because literally the nature of mankind literally is like the complete and total opposite of the nature of who God truly is. So of course, mankind is gonna go back and keep doing the same things, and then having to do animal sacrifices and stuff in order, you know, in order to really repent of their sin. But when Jesus came, died on the cross, that pretty much like negated all of that. Like it covered all of that. Long story short. So all Paul was saying, because the Pauline epistles is throughout the majority of the New Testament. So you got the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and all this literally saying that God, like Jesus is the truth, the way, and the life. Paul was saying the same thing. Jesus is the truth, the way, and the life. You're gonna go through persecution, you're gonna go through all of these things. But all that matters is that you're following the path of salvation by following Jesus. Like life ain't gonna be easy. Life ain't gonna be easy at all. But you gotta fight the good fight of faith to finish your race at the end of the day. So Paul was echoing the same thing. Cause like I think in Ephesians, yeah, like in Ephesians and Corinthians and so forth, some of those were letters to the church because of this whole fact that so Paul was letting them know, hey man, you know, if y'all really consider yourselves to be followers of Christ, you really gotta be on your P's and Q's about it. But also at the same time, it's very easy to look at what Paul is saying and essentially being like, oh, well, he said this and he said this and he said that. But the context matters because some people really have to look at the fact that this was thousands of years ago, like 2,000 plus years ago. So the customs and traditions that they have are different than the ones we have here. Although I'm not gonna lie, Paul was just snapping left and right. I ain't even gonna hold you. But everything that Paul was saying echoed what was said in the gospel. The Old Testament echoes the New Testament, and the New Testament constantly goes back to, talking about all the sacrifices and all the things that happened in the Old Testament, such as Moses pretty much bringing the people out of Egyptian captivity, and Jeremiah and Zechariah, and so many different prophets that God used. There's a consistent callback to those things. So, yeah, everything that Paul said literally echoes the same thing as the Gospels. So, yes. So, oh yeah. So some of these are copy pasters. Some of these, like, are legitimate questions. So this is a copy paster. Like a good chunk of them are copy pasters, essentially. So what's your favorite video and anime? I know they meant video games, but still. So my favorite anime, I think when I was younger, it used to be Death Note until but for right now, geez, like I don't watch anime like I used to anymore. But if I did, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is one of my favorite. It still has a place in my heart. I'm still using discernment about whether or not to continue to watch it. But JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is like one of my all-time favorite anime. I love how I'm just twiddling with this yarn instead of like crocheting like I did originally. I got frustrated. And then my favorite video game, when I was younger, it used to be Doom, but it's not anymore. So my favorite video game, I don't think I have a favorite video game. Yeah, I don't think I have a favorite video game, honestly. So what's your opinion on the church today? Also, what's your favorite show you watched as a kid? I'm gonna answer the second one first. I loved me some Barney growing up. I loved me some Barney, baby. Like, so my opinion on the church today, I would say my opinion of the modern day church is a lot of people have commercialized Christianity and has watered it down and turned it into something that it is not. To the point of where people would use scripture out of context to justify things that are not biblical at all. And it's not every church that's like this. It's not every single church that's like this. And then another thing I feel like that is problematic to me is there's not really a lot of churches that talk about how important it is to fight in the spirit and how important it is to put on the full armor of God. Because, baby, spiritual warfare is a lot realer than people realize. But we're so used to, I'm not even gonna say there's a lot of churches that consistently preach prosperity gospel instead of saying, you know what, blessings are cool, blessings are nice, but when it comes down to it, and in order to get those blessings, You have to be honest about the kind of person you are, and you have to repent. There's not a lot of that, because I don't feel like a lot of people want to acknowledge and admit that they're not as good of a person as they believe that they are. Because the amount of times that I have seen people on TikTok or in other spaces, they'll be like, I got haters and God told me that do, and God didn't tell them anything. But then again, I don't know what God did or didn't tell them. I could only use discernment and whether or not it's biblical or sound at the end of the day. Also, humility is another thing that I feel like really should be taught, because there's way too much the behavior of some people is just absolutely ridiculous. And a lot of people do not realize that the lack of humility from specific people is what causes people to leave the church. At the same time, it's like you don't gotta leave the church, man. Like, because at the end of the day, like, yeah, people suck. I'm not gonna lie, because all throughout history, mankind has done some of the grimiest stuff imaginable. But at the same time, it makes me sad because they're causing people to not want to have a relationship with God when God just wants to have a relationship with them. God is literally saying, forget the people. People gonna say whatever they want to say. Just come to me and I got you. Because it says in Psalms, you know, all the brokenhearted folks, I'm gonna give them comfort. Period. So I feel like those are really big things that I feel like really should be changed in the church, because we're in end times, baby. It's like it ain't playtime, bro. It's not playtime. It's not time to play church. Like, we gotta be honest. We gotta keep it a buck 150. No more, we're going into the overflow. We're gonna get $1 million. Like, less of that, more of telling people your heart posture is not in the right place. You're hurting people by not changing and being a better person. Like, more of that. More of that, less of the prosperity gospel. Blessings are going to come when they come, but obedience is better than sacrifice. If God is telling you that you have an attitude problem, or you say hurtful things and you got a slick mouth, you got to change that, because you're hurting people more than you realize. I say that because, prime example, like, I was talking to one of my church members like a while back when I was like starting to come back to church. And I was telling her, like, it was a while back where it was some things I was struggling with, and God was telling me that specific thing that you were struggling with, the root of that is a lack of self-control. You need to practice self-control. And guess what I did? I went to Mickey D's at 2 a.m. Like, the whole time I was in that driveway, God was literally saying, hey, you can go home, right? Save your money and go home. Save your money and go home. I wasted the mileage in my car. It went from 45 to 20. By the time I got my food, and baby, when I tell you I zoomed to that house to eat that Mickey D's, it was crazy, man. It was crazy. I know God was looking down and just shaking his head at me. That's all I gotta say. So then, what? I sound like a grandma. I look like a grandma. How you feel about 50-50 in relationships? 50-50 in relationships are for people that are very tit for tat, because relationships are not 50-50 at all. It requires you to be 100% on both sides. If you can't do that, you don't need to be in a relationship with anybody. Because it's just like I said in this video. Like, in order to be in a relationship, you have to understand that you have to go into it from a place of selflessness. You can't be selfish going into a relationship and thinking that everything is going to be peaches and cream and blah, 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 and so forth. You can't do that, because it's the same way when it comes to, God, literally Jesus giving his life for us. He didn't sit and say, "Oh, I guess I'll do it 50%." No. Jesus gave his all. He gave his entire life for us. So if that man does not love you like Christ loves the church, or if that woman does not fit the full essence of a Proverbs 31 woman, leave them alone. And even in ancient times, nobody complained about having to give a bride price to the dad. Because back in ancient times, in order for a man to marry a woman, he would literally have to go to the dad. And it's like, hey, I want to marry your daughter. And it was up to the dad whether or not that woman was to be married, right? And then even if you did, even if you did try to give a proposal or whatever, you had to pay a bride price. And that custom is still practiced in some African and Arabic cultures and so forth, right? So nobody is complaining about having to do that. Only people that either do not have the financial backings to date anybody, or people that are tit for tat. Because relationships are not 50-50. It's either 100%, 100%. And even when somebody is sick and, they don't feel well or whatever the case may be, and the other person has to, take care of that other person, even when they're sick, they're still giving you their all. Because at the end of the day, both parties are selfless and they love each other. So 50-50, if it works for you, it works for you. But the true essence of 50-50 is coming from a place of pride and tit for tat. And it makes no sense to me at all. Because I have seen people that have said that they're a 50-50 type person completely change and didn't mind doing anything for that woman the very moment they met said woman. So, no. So, piece of advice you'll give to teens and 20-year-olds. There's a lot I would say. But the one thing I will say through and through, I'm going to give you 3 pieces of advice. Maintain a relationship with God. Be yourself at all times. Establish your boundaries. So I say maintain a relationship with God because all throughout my teens and my early 20s, because I'm 26 now. So all throughout those times, God was right there protecting me from all types of danger, and I didn't realize it. There was a lot of times where I endured a lot of negative things, but throughout those times, I was myself. I was constantly being myself, and I got flack for it, but I didn't care. Now, when I was in my early 20s, I started to lose a little piece of myself just here and there because of the fact that I wasn't healing properly from the trauma that I dealt with, right? So, over time, I was like, you know what? I'm tired of people, trying to steer me in the wrong direction and trying to do this and this and blah, blah, blah. So I came back to God, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be bold. I'm gonna get buck. I'm gonna get buck about my faith, period. So once I started being myself in every single aspect, that void that I've been feeling, that I was feeling, was no longer a thing anymore. I felt happier, even in times of stress. I felt like I could take on the whole world. Just like in Philippians, it felt like I could do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So, and then establish your boundaries. If you're not comfortable with the specific things, specific clothes, whatever the case may be, make that known. Because you have people that if you don't establish those boundaries, they will dog walk you every single time. And it even says, in my opinion, it's biblical to, always be kind. At the same time, tell the truth and establish boundaries. Because all throughout that Bible, Jesus was nice to people, but at the same time, he put that boundary down and was like, okay, you got to change. You got issues, bro. You got to change those things in order to be better. He constantly told the truth and established boundaries. So That's what I'm gonna say. People may be upset about those boundaries, but boo-hoo. That sounded mean, but boo-hoo. That's just what it is. Cause it's healthy. You got to. Because there's a lot of evil people out there, and they will take and take and take and take and take and take from you until you have nothing. And they'll be content with you having nothing. So yeah. All right, so the origins behind my username. So years ago, I couldn't think of a nickname. I couldn't think of a name because I think my original name was super cringy. It was like Kimmy Catastrophe or something like that. It was so cringy. I was in my emo phase. So at the time I was like in community college, and I think it was like in biology. I was in my biology class, and it was someone that I dated in the past or whatever. Um, we were just like randomly talking, and then out of nowhere it was like chemistry. And I was like, you sure? Right. So I just pretty much took out the Kim part and then put my, like, the first three initials of my name in the front, and then bow. Chemistry was born. The last question. So Eep said, what are some good ways to prevent burnout? I find myself losing motivation during the process of creating things and can't get into a good workflow. Some good ways to prevent burnout is to do everything in moderation. So I know there's like a lot of content creators or a lot of creatives that consistently do something so much that it causes them to burn out and not want to do anything. But you have to healthily limit yourself when you're doing specific things. So like, for example, if you're a content creator, you don't have to make videos every single day, bro. You really don't. Sometimes you can do videos like maybe once a week or whatever the case may be, that allows you to be able to get other stuff done compared to, just content creating. Like, even for me, I ain't gonna lie, I'm a little inconsistent though. There's moments where I'll post once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month, but I try to limit myself to make sure that I have enough time to edit, I have enough time to post, I have enough time to do all this stuff. Because mind you, sometimes the editing process is like is no more than maybe like 6+ hours. It really depends. And then on top of that, I'm editing my own thumbnails, I'm editing all types of stuff. Sometimes I'm making animations for those videos, sometimes going into Blender and doing all this stuff. So the greatest way to prevent burnout is to do everything in moderation, because it even says in the Bible, when it comes to specific things, eat in moderation. Don't be wrong. In the next thing you know, you're in the process of like throwing up. And I know the very moment I bring up food, somebody's gonna be like, you're one to talk. Look, I'm just saying, even now, I practice, you know, I'm literally doing it, trying to do everything in moderation, to where I'll eat like two times a day. Like, as of recently, I really eat 2 times a day, but it's not like super big amounts. So, and one of the greatest ways, I feel like one of the things that'll help with like motivation is remembering why you do it. Because, like, prime example, outside of this, I do graphic design. Right? Yeah, outside of this, I do graphic design. And the thing that would motivate me whenever I would get tired is remembering my why. So to me, remembering my why serves as motivation because of the fact that it is literally the very essence of what would keep me going. How did I get into this? Why did I get into this? Why should I continue to get into this? Because it helps me maintain integrity and honesty in what I'm doing, inside and outside of it, along with, not caring what other people think as well. Because I feel like a lot of content creators cause themselves to burn out by thinking about what people think about them 24/7. You're going to cause yourself to burn out by trying to change, your content, to the point of where when you watch a video, you see that it's you talking on the screen, but you can't even recognize that it's you because that's not even something you would do. So I would say practice everything in moderation, remember your why, and then, yeah, that's it. But all right, y'all. This has been a random talk one. I actually enjoyed this. I want to do this again. But if you like this video, go down, press the like button. Don't forget to don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell beside the subscribe button to get more notifications on when I post next. And sadly, you may have to look me up because YouTube do not be notifying people about nothing for whatever reason. But aside from that, I'll see you guys in the next video. All right, bye guys. I still look like a grandma though. I still look like a grandma.